ISKCON beauty about charge my waist, AC on my side, arch. Nittily look over your home, you should rise my grace, you about this time, the stars that you talk about. I'm not to go to my children if he's at now, my charge should have hired us, talk with Mexico, Ocean, should say time to move it down, and then she might need to get on the she wants to go at the window. He's at she Radha Krishna, Govinda, Shamakunda. Radha Kunda, Girigo Nakita, Sri Rajabumina Nakita, Shri my Kodakita, Shinala Chalja, Nakita, Gangami Kita, Sumai Kita, Bhakti Devi Kita, Swati Tosa Maharani Kita, she Panchatatta Kita, she Goretai Kita. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Kita. Going back to home, back to Godhead Kita. ISKCON Ljubljana Yatra Kita. Brihabhadanga Transcendental Book Distribution Kita. International Food for Life. Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Kita. Sri Harinam Sankirtan Kita. Entire Gaur Premananda. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and all glories to the Prabhupada. And Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai for bringing me nice warm water. As you know, the three Goshas, Kapavitra, I mostly value air, and the air goes out of balance very easily. So warm water is good for clearing the throat, for speaking. Narayana Namaskritya, Nam Chaiva Narotamam, Deving Saraswatim Vyasam, Bhagavatam, which is the rare means of conquest. Let us offer respectful obeisances unto the first unto Bhagavad Narayan, unto Narayan, which was the most human being, unto the Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, who is the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Naishtaki by regularly attending the Srimad Bhagavatam class and by rendering service unto the pure devotees, all that is souls unto the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving devotional service unto the personality of God that is worshipped with transcendental songs becomes established and the irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 So we're continuing reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the 5th canto, chapter 14, for submission of enjoyment, and today's verse is the last verse of the chapter. Yes, text 46, yeah, last verse of the chapter. Now it's a long prose verse, that's why it's not on the board, so I'll just read it myself and then we'll jump to the translation. Yaidam Bhagavata Sabhajita Mudata Guna Karmano Rajarsher Bharatasya Nucharitam Swastyayanam Ayushyam Taram Yasasyam Swargya Pavargyam Vanashrinocha Kyasya Chavin Nandati Chasarva Eva Shisha Atmana Ashastena Kanchana Parata Iti. So, Srila Prabhupada's translation for this verse. Devotees interested in hearing and chanting Shravana Kirtana regularly discuss the pure characteristics of Partha Maharaj and praise his activities. If one submissively hears and chants about the all-auspicious Maharaj Bharata, one's lifespan and material opulences certainly increase. One can become very famous and easily attain promotion to the heavenly planets, or attain liberation by merging into the existence of the Lord. Whatever one desires can be attained simply by hearing, chanting, and glorifying the activities of Maharaj Bharata. In this way, one can fulfill all his material and spiritual desires. One does not have to ask anyone else for these things, for simply by studying the life of Maharaj Bharata, one can attain all desirable things. So, report. The forest of material existence is summarized in this 14th chapter. The word bhava, to be, refers to the path of material existence. The merchant is the living entity who comes to the forest of material existence to try to make money for sense gratification. The 6 plunderers are the senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, touch, and mind. The bad leader is diverted intelligence. Intelligence is meant for Krishna consciousness, but due to material existence we divert all our intelligence to achieve material facilities. Everything belongs to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but due to our perverted mind and senses, we plunder the property of the Lord and engage in satisfying our senses. The jackals and tigers in the forest are our family members, and the herbs and creepers are our material desires. The mountain caves are our happy home, and the mosquitoes and serpents are our enemies. The rats, beasts, and vultures are different types of thieves who take away our possessions, and the Gandharva Pura is the phantasmagoria of the body and home. The will-o'-the-wisp is our attraction for gold and its color, and material residence and wealth are the ingredients for our material enjoyment. The whirlwind is our attraction for our wife, and the dust storm is our blinding passion experienced during sex. The demigods control the different directions, and the cricket is the harsh word spoken by our enemy during our absence. The owl is the person who directly insults us, and the impious trees are impious men. The waterless river represents atheists who give us trouble in this world and the next. The meat-eating demons are the government officials, and the pricking thorns are the impediments of material life. This is quite a list, but we're meant to meditate on this. So. The little taste experienced in sex is our desire to enjoy another's wife, and the flies are the guardians of women, like the husband, father-in-law, mother-in-law, and so forth. The creeper itself is women in general. The lion is the wheel of time, and the herons, crows, and vultures are so-called demigods, pseudo-swamis, yogis, and incarnations. All these are too insignificant to give one relief. The swans are the perfect brahmanas, and the monkeys are the extravagant shooters engaged in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. The trees of the monkeys are our households, and the elephant is the ultimate of death. Thus, all the constituents of material existence are described in this chapter. Thus end the purports of the 5th canto, 14th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled The Material World as the Great Forest of Enjoyment. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravati Charni Nirvashesha Srimati Pachati Om Agyana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksha Undalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Vado Vishtam Snapita Bhutale Swayamrupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swagadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamanam Shri Guru Dharasana Shah Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadaitam Savadutam Puritana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Maharan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakramita Shakta Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Ramudagate Gopesha Vikakanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kancha Gaurani Radhe Radheshwari Vishama Sute Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatamubhyascha Vivarsasubhyascha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Maharaj Shri Vatsali Gaura Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So you're very fortunate. You have, well, do you have the complete Srimad Bhagavatam in your language? Serbo-Croatian. And English also. Most of you speak English, so you can read it in English. So no problem. But I was very fortunate to be invited to participate in producing Prabhu's books. First, well, it was ISKCON Press, and then later on became Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. As a third-year college student, just finished my third year, I joined the movement. And in those days, if you were a little bit sane and a little bit intelligent, after a couple of weeks, they said, well, why aren't you moving in already? Come on, join. So it didn't take long for me to move in. And my first service, living in the Henry Street Temple, which was a 5-story townhouse. Actually, it was a double townhouse. It was formerly a convent. Catholic nuns were living there. But like many of the Christian institutions of that time, they were not being used properly, so they wound up selling a lot of their property. So literally all across America we bought, and then even in Canada we bought former churches and they became Christian temples. So anyway, this was a temple. So in the Brahmacharya ashram, it's not like nowadays. You have a few men living in big space, especially in Los Angeles. I don't know about your situation is here, but in LA, you have like 2 brahmacharis living in a big room. In those days, it was about 100 brahmacharis living in a room this size. So we were sleeping like sardines next to each other. So my first service, literally, upon moving into the ashram, was to clean the stoolrooms. So they were like, you know, obviously the women had their own floor, but on our floor, the men's floor, that was a heavy job because you know you had a lot of men living together and small bathroom. I think there were like 4 toilets and 2 showers. So my first service was cleaning that. So I vividly remember, you know, I was thinking, but then I realized, you know, that surrender means you have to surrender to whatever order comes down in the slippery succession. That is the motivation for being part of an organization like this. And we take it for granted that Krišna is the complete controller, ultimate controller, and he's overseeing everything. So whatever order is coming down, as long as it's not violating any of our principles, you know, if the temple president asks you to go buy a hamburger, you tell him to go to hell. Any other order that's coming down that is not violating our principles, in other words, you may be a big Sankirtan devotee, but if the order comes down, I want you to become a temple president or clean the kitchen or whatever. We're not in this organization standing on Varna and Ashram. Obviously, we should be guided by that because it's stated that you're not a human being until you accept Varna and Ashram. So yes, we must be brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas. We must eventually decide on the Varna. Am I a brahmana? Am I a kshatriya? You know, Vaishya, Shudra. But we're not totally governed by that. The Vaishnava community is governed by the order of the spiritual master. So you may be a brahmana, and if you're asked to sweep the floor, you can't think, hey, I'm a brahmana, that's Shudra work. No, we don't think like that. Whatever the order comes down, that's what we do. So if the spiritual master wants one to clean the temple, you clean the temple. If the spiritual master wants you to go out into certain books, you do that, even if it may not be matching with your psychophysical nature. Which, in my case, it didn't. I didn't. You know, it's funny. I'm a very gregarious person. I like to interact, but at the same time, very much a loner at heart. So it was not so easy to approach people and try to get them to buy books. But even though I was eventually working in the book trust, in the ISKCON press, and it started because one day while I was doing my duty of cleaning Jayadvaita Das Brahmachari, who is now Jayadvaita Swami, he came to me and said, we have heard that you know something about computers. And in those days, computers meant mainframe computers. You know. He said, we're getting ready to computerize the book production, so would you like to be involved? Yes, of course. So that's how I got involved. But even though we were doing a very important service of producing Prabhu's books, we still had to go out every day. We went out on Harinam, and then many times we had to go out and try to distribute Prabhu's books, which again for me was a little bit of a leap. It was not something I was used to. I was used to hanging out with people for sense gratification. You know, what is the best type of intoxicant or the best party to go to, you know, like that. Not for trying to get them to buy books. Even though I was an avid reader myself, and read a lot of esoteric so-called spiritual books before Prabhu's books, but still. My point is that you are part of a Vaishnava community, and therefore we have to act accordingly. We're not part of necessarily Varnashram community. If you notice, Prabhupada did not immediately try to institute Varna and Ashram. The idea was we are carrying out the order of our spiritual master, and in that manner, I am asking you to do such and such and such. So whatever Prabhupada asked, for instance, Prabhupada asked the devotees to start publishing his Back to God magazine, which he had personally started back in India. So in that regard, they bought, in those days, this was in the 60s, what's called a mimeograph machine, which is a very rudimentary type of press. You have an original that was typewritten, and then there were carbon copies of it. And then there was a hand crank machine to make more and more copies. So, in the beginning, the devotee said, "But Prabhupada, we don't know anything about publishing." He said, "Just rely on Krišna, do it." He said, "So sometimes we get put in such a situation. Like, you may be asked to go and open a temple somewhere, and you never had any such experience. But Prabhupada said, in those kinds of circumstances, just rely on Krišna. Krišna is the Lord of the heart, and He's our well-wisher. Even in other religious traditions, they have this idea that God is all good, which is a fact. If everything is God's energy, why would He be inimical to any part of His energy? And Krišna directly states that in the Bhagavad Gita, Samoham sarvabhuteshu nami dveshu sinat priya. Yeah, Bhaktya, Mayite Teshu Chapya. Krishna says, I am no one, nor am I specially friendly to anyone. I'm equal to all. But if you approach me in a service attitude, you want to serve me, then I'm your friend and you're a friend to me. That's Krishna's declaration in Bhagavad Gita. So again, it's quite understandable. Everything emanates from God, including the living entities. Why would it be inimical to any one part of it? It's like you being inimical to one of your fingers. It doesn't make sense. You're equally kind to all parts of the body, even though in terms of importance, you may give more importance to your head than to one little finger, but still, you don't want anything to happen to that little finger. And if something does happen to that little finger, it gets smashed in some way, it becomes such a center of your attention. You want it to get back to normal. See? So it's like that. We're like the smashed finger right now in the material world. And Krishna wants us to come back to normal state of consciousness. I mean, seeing Him in the right way, seeing our relationship in the right way, and acting in the right way. So this chapter that we just finished, the 14th chapter, the reason why I brought this up is because you're very fortunate you have the complete Bhagavatam, you can see. But we didn't have at that time. Even in 73 when I joined, Bhagavatam was not complete. So by 75, Prabhupada, as you know, he stopped everything and his translation said, I'm not going to translate anymore till you catch up. So I would happen to be fortunate enough to be part of that crew that produced 17 volumes in 2 months. So there were 15 volumes of the Chaitanya Charitamrita and 2 volumes of this 5th canto, Bhagavatam. So at that time, like I said, I was a computer, I had some experience, so we set up from mainframe, it had been reduced to what's called a mini computer. Now we have microcomputers that are in everything, but a mini computer was about the size of a big refrigerator. So I used to program the mini computer, and the mini computer was used to drive a typesetting machine. And it was photo typesetting, in other words, it was photographically exposed on a long continuous roll of photographic paper. And the odd thing about it is that when you put that roll of paper that was exposed into the processing machine, it came out backwards. In other words, the last thing that went in came out first. That's called LIFO, L-I-F-O, last in, first out. That's compared to like a laundry basket. The last thing you put in is the first thing that you take out. Whereas a pipe is first in, first out. Whatever goes into a pipe first comes out first at the other end. So this typesetting equipment was last in, first out. So I, as the person running the equipment, had the privilege of reading things as they came out, but backwards. You understand? So I was reading like this chapter, I would be reading the last verse first. But we were very eager to read anything that Prabhupada produced, because we didn't have, a full set of Bhagavatam to sit down and read. So nowadays we're very fortunate. We have our iPads, the entire, not just the Bhagavatam, but everything is here. We can travel, and so there's no excuse for you, younger generation, to not read Prabhupada's books. Everywhere you go, on your iPhone, on your iPad, you can sit down anywhere. Not only read all of Prabhupada's books, but listen to all the lectures, everything you can carry in one little device. So really, you have absolutely no excuse to allow yourself to be distracted by anything in this forest of material enjoyment. Now, one of the mistakes that some devotees made when reading this chapter, they immediately started looking at their spouses like, you're a jackal. You're this, you're that. No. We're all, male and female, in the Krishna consciousness movement, trying to make spiritual advancement. So we're not seeing each other in this light. You see? This is referring to those who are totally materialistic. Totally materialistic. So we should not make that mistake that we read some description in the Bhagavatam of how ideal family life should be, and now we want our wife to be like that, even though I am not ideal. See? It doesn't work like that. Just before I left LA, I was counseling one man who was married, and I had heard some feedback that he was not being nice to his wife and stepson. So I tried to get him to understand this, that you're not perfect, so why do you demand perfection in others? Our first job is to make ourselves perfect and then try to assist others to come to the level of perfection. if I'm not perfect as a husband, or a servant, or a president, temple president, whatever, if I'm not perfect, I cannot demand perfection from others. See? We all know what the ideal should be. But it's not easy to be Kardamamuni or Devabhuti. You see, it's not easy. But sometimes when we get married, we think that. The wife thinks she's marrying Kardamamuni, and the husband thinks he's marrying Devabhuti, and when they find out that it's not really like that, then they become disappointed. But if you're not Kardamamuni, why would you demand your wife to be like Devabhuti? So you can't. It's not possible. In other words, we have to learn to live with each other's shortcomings, understanding that I myself am full of shortcomings. So until and unless, and even after we come to the point of perfection, we see like Srila Prabhupada, he set the prime example. Prabhupada was Jagat Guru from the beginning. It's not that he became, he was from the very beginning. He came to this world for that reason. More Sena Pati Bhakti. He is that general amongst devotees that Lord Chaitanya sent to lead everybody in this Kali Yuga. But even from that platform, Prabhupada was so tolerant. In the beginning, when they had one apartment with one bathroom, Prabhupada was standing in line behind his devotees to use the bathroom. And the foolish disciples, so-called disciples, were letting him do that. They didn't immediately move out of the way and the Prabhupada would go to the front. You see? But Prabhupada was tolerant. He didn't demand. You idiots. No, it wasn't like that. So we should try not to be demanding with each other. There's a story of a young female devotee who asked Prabhupada about being on Sankirtan. She said, Prabhupada, when we go on Sankirtan, we're supposed to be a little aggressive and, chase people, but when we come home, and Prabhupada said, yes, you should be like a lion on the chase and a lamb at home. So, on another occasion, one devotee was recalling this. Actually, some other devotee asked a similar question. And Jayacharya Prabhupada said, what did he say? And Jayacharya Prabhu said, he's asking about, being a lion. And Prabhupada said, yes. So what did I answer? And like that, Jayacharya said, like that girl asked you that time. And Prabhupada said, yes. So what was my answer? You said be like a lion on the chase and a lamb at home. And you know what Prabhupada said this time? He said, yes. A lion on the chase, but when you come home, don't chase the devotees. So we should learn not to chase each other, which means two things from my understanding of Prabhupada's conversation that day. Don't chase the devotees for sense gratification. We should not see Krishna servants as being our servants. Yes, there may be a hierarchy, parent, child, temple president, like that. But ultimately, we're not seeing each other as objects of sense gratification. And the second part is, don't chase the devotees away by your misbehavior. You see, you may be so disappointed in somebody and you want to show them how disappointed. No, it's not your movement, it's Lord Chaitanya's movement. You see, it's Srila Prabhupada's movement. So we have to try to take up their movement. Lord Chaitanya was very, very tolerant, even of Jagai Madai. Why? Because they agreed to follow the principles and try to become Vaishnavas. He wanted to kill them because they injured Nityananda. But Nityananda said, no, my Lord, if you kill him, then you have to kill everybody. It's practically for everybody in the same side. She wanted that you should go and attack each other. In this age of Kali, practically everybody's Jagai Madai. Meaning, not following the principles, sense gratification to the max. Even if it means stealing, killing, whatever it meant, they wanted their intoxication and their sense gratification. So Lord Chaitanya was ready to kill them, but because they agreed, they submitted themselves in his lotus feet and agreed to follow the principles, chant Hare Krishna, and he accepted them. So we should be in that mood also. Just imagine. When we go out and chant on the streets, we're so happy if somebody says Hare Krishna. Ah, he said Hare Krishna. But then we come back home and we're devotees are chanting Hare Krishna all the time, and we can't stand them. It doesn't make sense. If we're so happy when somebody says Hare Krishna one time, we should be extremely happy with somebody who's chanting Hare Krishna every day. You see? But because we have our conception of what somebody else should be like, and they don't measure up to what we think they should be like, and we get upset with them. That's ludicrous. If you want to work on somebody, work on yourself. See, that much we should do. Work on ourselves. And everybody else, yes, we may be in a position where we have to give instruction. As the president, as GBC, as guru, as father or mother. But we can't get upset. Lord Rishabdev deals with this in Bhagavatam. Lord Rishabdev, when he's instructing his sons, he says that the king, the guru, and the father should give good instructions to the citizen, the disciple, and the son, or daughter, and offspring. But if the citizen, the disciple, or the offspring don't perfectly follow the instructions, don't get angry, just go on giving the instructions. And the best instruction we can give is our own personal example. As I was saying a few nights ago, the typical materialistic way of raising children is to do as I say, not as I do. See? So the parents maybe have all kinds of bad habits, but they're telling the children, don't do that. It doesn't work. Most part, it doesn't work. The children see what you do and they're going to try to act like you. So in our society, Acharya, and we're all meant to become Acharyas, means one who leads by example. Don't expect others to do things that you're not doing. So if I'm not perfect in my service, why should I expect somebody else to be perfect in their service? Let me work on perfecting my service. And therefore Krishna says in the Gita, it's better to do your own service imperfectly than to try to do somebody else's service perfectly. See? Concentrate, in other words, on what you've been given, no matter how simple. If you're given the task, and our line is you learn not by figuring things out, you learn by hearing. So even if you're given the simplest task to do, clean the temple room, find out who was cleaning it before you, and ask them exactly, where is everything kept, what am I supposed to do, how do I do it, like that. What to speak of more complex tasks, what to speak of cooking. We're not supposed to be inventors in the kitchen. We have so many devotees before us who have made kitchen, who have made halakha, who have learn from them. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. That's not our society. Our society is not one. The karmis, they want to reinvent the wheel so they can be glorified. Ah, he made a better wheel. You see? But we're not into personal glorification. We live by the satisfaction of the superior, of the guru, of Krishna ultimately. So in order to satisfy the superior, we want to do things properly. And to do things properly, we want to learn from someone who's already done it properly. See? So whether it's cleaning or cooking or book distribution or whatever, and that's why Prabhupada said, he told Yamuna Devi, and we have her cookbook, when it goes to cooking, you don't even have to search anywhere, just open Yamuna's cookbook and learn from her. But he told Yamuna, he asked her, are you teaching the other devotees how to cook? Because she became celebrated as a good cook. And Prabhupada said, whatever you know, you should teach others, otherwise you become envious. See, this is a material mentality. I know something and I get all kinds of accolades as a big teacher of this or that. And I don't want to teach anybody unless I'm getting something out of it. Otherwise, leave me alone. But devotee mentality is not like that. As soon as you learn something, you want to teach it to others, and that reinforces your knowledge. See? So whatever you learn, and in Krishna consciousness, we know Yukta Vairagya. It could be anything. It could be how to run the computer or how to run the sound system. That may seem mundane, but it's important. If somebody's not here every day to run the sound system properly, it's a disturbance, isn't it? So if you know how to run the sound system properly, teach somebody else how to do it. How to put on the Govinda prayers, how to make what level it might. In our New Dwarka temple, we have a big sound closet with lots of equipment. And everything is marked precisely where it should be. So you don't have to guess. And you can tell right away if something doesn't sound right. You go to the closet and you see, okay, this thing should be here. Somebody moved it over there. So that's another way of teaching. It's kind of indirect way of teaching. But so whatever we know, we should be willing to teach others. And that way, the service goes on nicely. Not that, I'm doing something nicely and then I go away for 2 weeks and everything falls apart. So they can know that I'm not there. How important I am. When I'm not around, things fall apart. No. If we're really doing it for the right reason, for glorification of Guru and Krishna, then if I'm going away for 2 weeks, I want somebody to know what I'm doing so that things don't deteriorate while I'm gone. So whatever it is. And we see in Prabhupada's case, for instance, Prabhupada always had a personal servant and a secretary. And it changed from time to time. So one of the duties of the outgoing servant was to train the new servant properly.
So they knew exactly what to do, and Prabhu's service was not interrupted unnecessarily. Same thing with the secretary. The secretary had to be trained by an outgoing secretary so the new one would know exactly what to do, how to do Prabhu's correspondence, and when to do what. So if we're taking things seriously in our service to Guru and Krishna, then we should have this mentality. I should first of all want to learn properly, and then I become qualified to teach properly. If I didn't learn nicely from my predecessor, then what am I going to teach? That means I'm teaching speculation, and we don't want that. We don't want a speculative approach to devotional service. Devotional service should be continued nicely, handed down, and then passed on, just like the knowledge. We're very fortunate that we have knowledge that has been handed down in this particular sampradaya, so we're very confident that we're getting exactly the meaning, just like it was being, we read this morning in Chaitanya, in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. The Vedic knowledge is meant for three things: for understanding our relationship with God, for acting on that understanding, and ultimately for coming to the perfectional stage of love of Godhead. So if we really want to reawaken our love for God, then we will follow properly and strictly the instructions that come down in the succession. And that way, our own success is guaranteed, and the success of the movement as a whole will be guaranteed. And this movement is meant to go on. It's not, at least for the next 10,000 years, the golden years in the Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga deteriorates quite rapidly. Everything. In the 12th canto, there's a nice verse that explains, and I'll finish with this. Tatas chadulinam dharma satyam sojam shamadaya kalena balena raja namshatyahu balam smritihi. So this is nice verse. Shukadeva Goswami is winding up now. He's already done the full big 10th canto and the 11th canto general history. And now in the 12th canto, he's winding up his presentation to Maharaj Krishna. So he says, Tatas cha anudinam dharma. So day by day, these things deteriorate in the Kali Yuga. The first thing is dharma, which is religiosity or spirituality. These things, the first thing is dharma. Satyam, truthfulness. Socham, cleanliness. Shama, tolerance. Daya, mercifulness. And now why is this happening? Kalena Bhalina Raja, due to the strength of the force of Kali Yuga. Kalena Bhalina Raja, O king. Namcha Tyahur Balang Smritihi. So these other things also deteriorate. Ayur means, we know from Ayurveda, duration of life. Ayurveda is the health science that helps you to increase the duration of your life. So Ayur, duration of life, diminishes. Namcha Tyahur Balang. Balaram, strength. Smritihi, intelligence or remembrance. So these things are rapidly deteriorating in the Kali. Very rapidly deteriorating. And only those who take wholeheartedly to the Krishna consciousness movement can kind of keep that at bay. In other words, if you take wholeheartedly to Krishna consciousness, then all of these things, your religiosity, your memory, your mercifulness, your truthfulness, your cleanliness, all of these things have a chance of surviving at a nice level. Otherwise, people are already so condemned, unclean, and untruthful, which is the last leg of religiosity, as we know. The house of religion is built on 4 pillars. And what are those pillars? Mercy, yes. Cleanliness, austerity, and truthfulness. So the principles that we follow are meant to uphold those principles. We are following the principles of freedom, religious principles of freedom. We're promised to avoid certain things because these things break those religious colors. So, no meat eating, what does that maintain? Mercy. No intoxication? Austerity. No illicit sex? Cleanliness. And, what's the last one? No gambling. Truthfulness, yes. So this is why we have to maintain these principles. We maintain these principles and we're able to support the house of religion or spirituality. And then we avoid running out again into this forest of ritual enjoyment, looking for happiness. You see, we are by nature happy. Satchidananda. We have the same constitutional makeup as Krishna. So we always have to look around for a way to increase our happiness. But if we're mistrained, if we're unfortunate, we run out into the material forest looking for enjoyment, and we simply get torn apart by all these animals, the owls and the jackals and the foxes, and that represent different aspects of material existence. So if we really, really want to be happy, then we stay out of that forest, and we come into the association of devotees and do our best to stay here. We have to be determined to stay here, which means avoiding, first of all, offenses. Mad elephant, as Lord Chaitanya says. That mad elephant offense doesn't mean only to pure devotees. Not only my spiritual master I try not to offend, but everybody else I can. No. We shouldn't even offend an ant, but to speak of anyone who's taken to the Krishna consciousness movement. So if we have that mentality, well, then we can very nicely protect our creeper of devotion that has been given to us by the spiritual master. And then we have to water the creeper by... Yes, today's purpose started out with Shravanam Kirtana. This is how you water the creeper of devotion. By hearing regularly, and then by repeating what you hear. This is another way of sharing. Whatever you hear, you repeat. And in this way, the creeper grows and grows and grows, breaks through the... How many layers are covering the universe?
7.
How many layers of cover? This is all described. You're reading the books. 7. And what is the unique feature? Each layer is 10 times thicker than the previous one. See? So you're not going to break out of this on your own. But by the mercy of the spiritual master, the creeper grows and breaks through those layers and goes all the way to Goloka Vrindavan and takes shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. So that's what we're hoping for every day when we're chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. We're watering and begging for the mercy. And that mercy is given to us in the form of devotional service. So when opportunities to serve come, we shouldn't run away from it. That's what we're praying for. We're praying to Krishna and Radharani, please give me service. And then the service opportunity comes in, I don't have any time. No, and we have not understood. If we can't increase the volume of service that we do, then we should at least try to increase the quality of the service that we're doing. See, whatever service it is, again, we have to be concerned. Prabhupada said, devotional service means concentrate on what have you been given. When I joined in Henry Street, one of the first things they told us, because we all had to help cutting up vegetables, there were so many boys living there, it was a big deal every day to prepare for service. So anybody who was available had to. So they warned us very strictly. First of all, they were very particular. When you cut a potato, crumpet, they had to be exactly the right size. You know, they're very particular. So that everything cooks. The explanation is that things will cook thoroughly nicely if everything is the right size. And then the next thing they said is, concentrate. We don't want your blood in Krishna sabji. So, whatever service you're given, you have to concentrate. Just like as if you have a knife, you have to concentrate. Whether it's cleaning or preaching or distributing books or whatever it is we're doing, concentrate. And that's what keeps us Krishna conscious. Otherwise, if I'm chanting but I'm allowing my mind to go everywhere, and we're chanting downtown and you're window shopping while you're chanting, that's not good. So chant with concentration japa, chant with concentration when we go out on Harinam, and that just keeps everything going forward. Spiritual life is ever increasing. Happiness, ever increasing. Everything, ever increasing. That's spiritual. Material always decreases. Until one day there's no more oil or there's no more whatever. Eventually in Kali Yuga, as we know, if you've read the 12th canto, no more sugar, no more vegetables, nothing. The only thing left is flesh. So they'll be killing you and your own offspring just to eat. That's how horrible it's going to become. After 427,000 more years. We already passed 5,000 out of 432,000. So now we're not in such difficulty. We have nice veggies and nice ahimsa milk. So we should concentrate and try to get out now. Don't put it off for coming back later, because things just get worse and worse in the college. All right, we'll stop here. So there's maybe a question or two before we leave. Yes. Show the doula.
You mentioned no gambling. I like the definition you put for no gambling. When you were Could you repeat the definition? What means no gambling? Something about.
No gambling? Is that clear what that means?
No, you said like that we want more than Krišna is already.
Yeah.
Something like. How did you do
Yeah,
that?
that's pretty obvious. Gambling means taking whatever has been given to you as your just reward for this lifetime. Everybody's karma is different. It's not because we're all chanting Hare Krishna and we have the same karma. No. So based on previous karma, you've been put in a situation, a particular set of parents, a particular set of opportunities for education, money, etc., etc. So whatever we've been given. Some have been given more, some less. We're not all Ambarish, obviously. You know, by his karma, he's inherited millions and millions and millions of dollars. Most of us, we're lucky if we get, you know, a few euros. But whatever it is that's been given, gambling means taking what you've been given, what is your quota for this lifetime, and throwing it away for an opportunity to make more, easily. You see? It's sinful. Because the majority of people who gamble, they don't win. So they're putting themselves in a worse situation. You start out with an income of 5,000 euros or whatever you're making, and now you're gambling some of that away trying to become a millionaire. And generally speaking, you become less well off because you've lost those 5,000 euros and now you're going crazy to the point where you might even want to rob a bank or something. And that's what makes people do things like that. They've thrown away what they had and now they're desperate, so they do something even more foolish. One devotee, or trying to be a devotee, he was a bhakta at the time. This is in San Diego in the early 90s. He was trying to impress his wife. He had married this woman, new devotee. She was also a new devotee. He had married her and she had a college degree and she had a good job. And he was not very educated, so he was trying to impress her by getting money. So unfortunately he decided to try robbing banks. You see, mode of ignorance, obviously. And so he successfully robbed a couple banks, and I think on the third try he got caught. So, no more easy money, no more any money. Now you're doing hard time in prison. So, and of course she divorced him and married some other more intelligent. So, yeah, gambling is not good. Krishna's given you, by your karma, you've got a certain amount. Whatever amount Krishna gives you, you should use it in the service. So if you are making 5,000 euros and you're using whatever you need for your maintenance and the rest you're using in Krishna's service, then that's glorious. Much more glorious than the guy who's making $5 million or 5 million euros and he's not giving anything to Krishna. He thinks this is all this mythology and he wants something to do with it. So you're better off being poor and using everything in Krishna's service than being rich and not using anything in Krishna's service. Okay? Jai, Master Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta ki jai.